Good morning, or depending on when and where you're joining us from, good afternoon or good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Alibaba Cloud Academy Day online conference. My name is Chris Potts. I am the Channel and Alliance Manager for Alibaba Cloud in Europe, and it's my very great pleasure today to get the ball rolling with you. First, by introducing you to the agenda and the speakers we have lined up for you today, and then giving you my own personal whirlwind introductory tour to Alibaba Cloud. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to the speakers we have lined up. I think we've already heard enough about the first guy, so with that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to our next speaker of today, Jeremy Peterson. Jeremy is one of our senior solution architects based in Hangzhou, China, and works extensively with our international customers on both sides of the China fence. So Jeremy will be drawing on his extensive experience to share his tips and tricks when it comes to deploying one of Alibaba Cloud's most foundational services, Elastic Cloud Compute. Dr. Jaime Lo will then be following Jeremy, who's our staff product manager, be sharing his best practices for Alibaba Cloud database services, and particularly the importance of working with data during the migration process. It will be then Jade Huang's turn to take the stage and to talk about the importance of building stable, fast, and robust networking solutions in a secure manner. Something that's absolutely fundamental to any architectural discussion, and particularly important when thinking about the challenges for international companies connecting to digital China. Derek Mong from the Global Technical Training Team will then take us into the world of big data and Alibaba Cloud's data warehousing solutions. And if you have ever heard of Alibaba's Singles Day Festival, you know that when it comes to talking about big data, we're not kidding around. My European colleague in Paris, Jan Jean, will then share what we've learned both internally and with our customers and partners in China and without on how to approach a cohesive strategy for building cloud-native applications. For our penultimate session, Fanny, our Global Technical Marketing Manager and someone with whom I start my own personal Alibaba Cloud journey, Wei Tong, will then bring us home, wrapping up today's online conference by sharing his insights and advice on how you get started your personal journey with Alibaba Cloud. So that brings us to the order of today. So I'll be kicking off with myself, handing over to my colleague Jeremy and other colleagues throughout the day. Needless to say, we've got a lot of content to cover, and we acknowledge that maybe some of the sessions may not be as relevant as others, depending on who's listening. So with that in mind, please feel free to join the sessions today that are most relevant to you and based on the running order you see here. And to keep things pretty easy, we've allocated exactly 1 hour to each session, which brings us to some pretty simple house rules. First off, some of the sessions may end early, but the next session will start on time. So hopefully that will allow you to schedule things for yourself today effectively. Also, the Q&A session window will be open throughout the live stream, and you're able to ask questions as we go along, and we'll do our best to answer them during the actual presentation itself. But if we don't come to have enough time to answer your questions, we will be following a follow-up after the event where we'll encompass all your questions and answer them as part of the follow-up to anyone who's registered today. And finally, what's the big difference between an online and an offline conference? When it comes to the traditional things of telling you where the fire escapes are, when lunch is, and where you get coffee, that one's up to you. So, with that in mind, I'd like to get the ball rolling with our first session today, an introduction and overview of Alibaba Cloud. I've divided up the next 40 minutes or so into 4 key sections. One, well, what is Alibaba Cloud and where have we come from? Potentially, why use Alibaba Cloud? What's our presence at a global level, not just from a China perspective? And for those of you just starting out, how can we support you around some of your solutions and requirements? At the moment, my session is really to give you a bit of an introduction overview, and then we'll go into a lot more detail on each of these areas in later sessions throughout the day. First off, what is Alibaba Cloud? Well, I don't think you can start any discussion about Alibaba Cloud without thinking about Alibaba Group. Kind of a bit of the history on how we formed as a company back in 1999 with Jack Ma and 17 of his close friends in a flat in Hangzhou, through today where we have a global scale and over 300 core and associated businesses. Back in 1999, it was all about Alibaba.com, effectively selling at a B2B level as an e-commerce marketplace. Following that, we introduced Taobao and Tmall, much more oriented towards B2B and B2C and even C2C. And following that, along came Alipay, being able to pay for things electronically as part of your e-commerce purchases. So as you can kind of see at the moment, some of the businesses we've created and brought together have almost been driven by the needs of our consumers. How can they get products easier and more effectively? How can they pay for those products in a society where cash is the most common transactional method? So how do you translate that into an e-commerce world? So that led us, as our businesses grew at a digital level, to the development of Alibaba Cloud, which actually was a private cloud initially. As we scaled our business, it became more and more difficult to support that level of scale with fixed hardware-oriented infrastructure. So we developed the private cloud system purely to support the incredible scale we were experiencing in our own business, and then spun that out as a public cloud services for other customers to utilize in 2009. 11 years later, here we are, multiple businesses. Alibaba Cloud has a global reach, and we've increased the number of relationships and business part of the Alibaba Group, but we all work as closely together as possible to serve our customers, making it easier for them to do business anywhere. So for those of you not familiar with the Alibaba ecosystem, this slide tries to give you a little bit of a picture about how our business is structured. At the top end, we talk about our B2B and B2C and C2C businesses. Mostly the front end of what a lot of our customers see in terms of what they use on a day-to-day basis, divided up into digital media solutions, core commerce, and local services. To give you a bit of perspective, within the digital media entertainment section, we have a portfolio of products and companies, including, for example, Youku. For those who are not familiar with Youku, it's essentially the YouTube of China. Weibo, to give another example, is the Twitter of China. On local services, we have things ranging from supermarkets to travel booking systems using our product platform, Fliggy. And of course, right in the middle, the crown jewel of our core commerce solutions. Alibaba.com still exists as that cross-border B2B, but has now been augmented by things such as Tmall for bringing international customers to sell their products in China, Taobao for local B2B and B2C and C2C type businesses, and even stretching outside of China, for example, with Lazada, our e-commerce marketplace in Southeast Asia. Supporting those businesses is what we think of our infrastructure business groups. For example, that includes Alipay and financial, how do we pay for things. Our logistics business, China, for delivering all those packages that people order, Alimama, for effectively giving insights, data marketing information, and the ability to advertise for our customers to reach their customers. And of course, Alibaba Cloud, the technology aspect of Alibaba Group. So how do all those businesses actually impact consumers in China on also a day-to-day basis? So I quite like this slide. It kind of gives a little feel on that as an average person in China. How do I actually interact with all those touch points from an Alibaba perspective? And as I progress throughout my day, as you can kind of see, all those logos that you see on the screen are actually Alibaba businesses, whether it's checking traffic on AMAP before I decide to go to work, calling Didi if I want to grab a cab in order to travel through Hangzhou, maybe using Alipay or buying my lunch in our Hema supermarkets. Again, perhaps they're coming home. I'm going to book Didi again, and in the evening, for entertainment purposes, I'm going to watch Youku. And there's lots of different ways that we interact with consumers across all our different businesses. And some of that insight is also what we'd like to bring to our international customers. How do they effectively engage at a digital level with consumers in China? And all these businesses really come together through a mad shopping festival on Singles Day, November 11th. This gives an example of what Singles Day actually generated from a gross merchandise value in 2019. So when it started way back in 2009, $7 million in 24 hours, compared to 2019, $38.4 billion of GMV. That's a lot of transactions. But I think what makes it really interesting is some of the technology that goes into play for supporting that festival. As you can see from some of the highlights, when you're talking about buying that level of product in a single 24-hour period, you're talking about a lot of transactions, 544,000 transactions per second at peak. And people are paying for things a lot of different ways now, not just from a normal credit card, Alipay perspective, but using biometrics. And actually, if you think about the kind of scale that we're referring to generate that amount of sales, managing support calls at a purely manual level is virtually impossible. So artificial intelligence, chatbots plays a huge part on how we effectively support our customers and our partners during the entirety of Singles Day. And again, for those of you not really too familiar with Singles Day as an event, to put it in a little perspective, this little logo at the bottom of the screen shows some other well-known shopping festivals that happen throughout the world. And in particular, if I draw your attention to Black Friday and Cyber Monday, roughly speaking, Singles Day does something in the region of treble the amount of GMV that those two festivals combined do, and only in that 24-hour period. So from an Alibaba Cloud perspective, we can talk about supporting all these incredible innovative technologies during Singles Day. But kind of what does it look like as far as our regions, our data centers, our services are concerned within China? I think this graph kind of underlines some of that. We've already talked about the incredible increase in the number of transactions being processed for something like Alipay or purchasing products on our e-commerce marketplace, and all that again is supported by the underlying Alibaba Cloud technology backbone. And if you can see that graph up on the very top of the screen, this kind of gives you a feel on what that level of scale looks like at a compute level. So going along rather merrily to begin with, and all of a sudden we flip the switch for the first orders happening on Singles Day and get a massive spike. So the ability to scale effectively is absolutely intrinsic to the way we've built our platform. We build for scale because we have to support our own business. And it's really exciting to talk about the big numbers, but just for a second, I want to draw your attention to the small number. So if we look down there at the bottom right, we can kind of see how that kind of compute graph, again in red to give the example of how compute spikes in that very narrow time period. I think the really key one is that blue line. That's actually response time. So as you can kind of see from a customer perspective, the response time of the web service that he's using to access the e-commerce marketplace remains relatively stable. So not just the ability to scale, but the ability to maintain good performance during Singles Day is, again, a core feature and requirement from Alibaba Cloud. And it's those kind of core features that we like to bring outside of our business and work with our customers and partners so they can develop similar solutions for their own requirements. So with that in mind, we talked about the ecosystem a little while ago, all the various businesses that make up Alibaba. But I kind of like to redraw that ecosystem. So we can talk about Tmall, we can talk about Alipay, and we can talk about all the really important businesses that average businesses and consumers in China and throughout the world interact with on every day. But underneath, that's Alibaba Cloud. We are the technology backbone for the business group of Alibaba. So when we talk about being able to sell $38.4 billion GMV in a 24-hour period, how would we do that without Alibaba Cloud supporting it? So what is Alibaba Cloud? In brief, well, it's a portfolio of services. It is a public cloud service available throughout the world in which you can spin up a variety of services, some of which are listed in this great big toolbox on the screen here, through a single user ID, whether it's in the UK, in Europe, in the US, and of course, in China. You have the ability as a business, as a customer, to take advantage of any of these services to build your own solutions. Pay-as-you-go, subscriptions, build, try it out, test it, fail fast, and if you don't need it again, turn it off and throw it away. A public cloud global hyperscaler service. So a little bit about us in particular. So I imagine you're probably familiar with some of the other big public cloud services throughout the world. So what about Alibaba Cloud? So we have the same kind of capabilities that other public cloud hyperscalers have. I can log in, I can use a service, I can turn it off when I don't need it anymore, and I stop paying for it at that particular moment in time.
So one of the unique characteristics of our cloud platform is undoubtedly the scope and coverage of services we have available in mainland China. So quite often, one of the first places we start the conversation with our international customers is how we can support their digital strategy in this very highly dynamic region. So looking at this a little bit more closely in terms of, say, market comparison, Alibaba Cloud is recognized as the leading cloud provider in terms of the strength of our portfolio, as well as our ongoing vision and strategy. So as you might imagine, this has resulted in a pretty comprehensive share of the overall China cloud marketplace, where Alibaba has, roughly speaking, 43% market share, or more than the next 7 cloud vendors combined. Now, while this is, of course, nice to reference, I think the really key thing about this stat and what it represents is the breadth and depth of the solutions and verticals that Alibaba Cloud has experience in deploying, particularly with regards to China's unique digital landscape. And finally, it's not just the technical services in the stack that's important, but the ability to deploy them where and when you need them. So in China, we have more regions than any other cloud provider, 9 at last count, with regions consisting of multiple availability zones or data centers, both for the purposes of scale and resilience. And finally, this is all backed by one of the largest CDN networks in China. So if you want to get your content and your digital service to your customer quickly as possible with high quality performance, then Alibaba Cloud has a very difficult proposition to beat. But it's not just China, of course. This map shows our global footprint, which today consists of 21 total regions worldwide and 63 availability zones. Again, all backed by our full CDN network of some 2,800 global nodes. The most recently launched international regions being UK and Indonesia in 2018, and Haiwen in Southeast China within the last couple of weeks, actually. So as an individual user, as a small business, as a multinational enterprise, from a single account, you can spin up and utilize services in any of our regions around the world. And as you can tell from the map, we've effectively grown out of the east, moving west. So today is one of the major 4 public cloud global hyperscalers. We currently hold number 3 position based on IaaS by revenue in APAC and number 1 in China. Again, backed by the most complete portfolio of services and coverage compared to any other provider on the mainland.
To put this in a bit of perspective, again, just going into a little bit more detail to give you a feel of what Alibaba Cloud is all about. From a global perspective, we're the number 3 infrastructure as a service based on Gartner revenue. And as I mentioned, in terms of our support of top 250 customers within China, we're number 1 by a very long way. Why do I talk about this? I suppose some of it is a little bit of boasting to a degree, but it's also hopefully giving you a little bit of an idea of the pedigree Alibaba Cloud and the experience we've had of building not just basic web service type functionality, but comprehensive artificial intelligence driven next generation kind of capability on Alibaba Cloud. Again, we can focus potentially on some of the things we've done in China, but actually it's at a global level. China is just one of the aspects of the service that we can bring to our customers. So that hopefully also brings us to some of the core technologies that make up the Alibaba Cloud platform, ranging from core infrastructure as a service capabilities, highly secure, highly scalable, ranging right through to more advanced multi-cloud interactive core competencies, especially oriented around big data scalability, learning from our own pedigree of how we supported global e-commerce festivals such as Singles Day, and right through to the more intelligence, next generation artificial intelligence driven type capabilities, which is really the future of some of the innovation that we're seeing, not just in China, but throughout the rest of the world. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a little bit of an introduction on where Alibaba has come from and how we fit into the overall Alibaba Group business ecosystem. You'll be hearing a lot more, diving into some greater detail throughout the sessions later on today. For the next section, I just want to give you a little bit of a feel on, well, we kind of have an idea of what Alibaba Cloud is, so why and when do we use it? Well, the first answer is you can use it for whatever reason is appropriate. Alibaba Cloud is a global hyperscaler public cloud service. As I mentioned, 20 regions in the world, 61 availability zones, lots of different options in terms of the tools, services you can take advantage of, some really comprehensive and flexible payment systems as well. But maybe at its heart, one of the first things to talk about is the reliable infrastructure for Alibaba Cloud. We have built this technology backbone to support our own business throughout the world, not just Singles Day, but maybe one of the important things to highlight at Singles Day is it's never gone down. So from that perspective, we have built Alibaba Cloud to have all the kind of capabilities to ensure very high availability, not just for ourselves, but for our customers. From that perspective, we have also built it for scale. So to handle those incredibly rapid changing requirements within the business, again, not necessarily just a peak, but the agility of your business, being able to do new solutions, new requirements as and when your customers dictate or the business drive demands you follow. And finally, that aspect of big data and artificial intelligence. China is an incredibly innovative economy at the moment, particularly when it comes to things like mobile applications, mobile engagement, both B2B as well as B2C. And in order to keep up with that level of scale, 800 odd million connected internet users in China, which is only roughly 56% of the population, artificial intelligence and the ability to handle data is absolutely core and fundamental to a lot of the services we support on Alibaba Cloud, all of which you'll be hearing about in more detail later on and throughout the day in specific sessions. The next thing to think about is maybe what your requirements are at a geographical level. As I mentioned, we have developed in China, spread out into the east and moving west. by and large. And actually, a lot of the conversations we have with our customers are how they engage at a digital level with China. And there are some absolutely challenges on doing that. Some of the problems customers that we've talked to have had are things like high latency problems, instability in terms of connecting where their core services are across into mainland China. The cost of actually addressing these solutions can be incredibly high as well. Also, deployment of services for connecting to China, whether it's ranging from something of just spinning up a web service or applying for your internet content provider filing license, can take time. So the time to market can be extended. And security is also pretty key. From a general digital marketplace perspective in China, it's important to understand that security should be absolutely fundamental to any solution you deploy. You need to be aware not just of the security implications in terms of compliancy within China, but protecting your infrastructure from black hat hackers as well. And once you have those solutions built, how do you maintain it? Any solution that you deploy that is expensive, difficult to maintain, not very agile, is going to make it very difficult for you as a business to adapt to demanding requirements in digital China going forward, a highly agile economy. So I was tempted to focus on a little bit of the core challenges some of our international customers and partners have connecting to digital China, but we wouldn't be able to do all of that if we didn't think about the core values of Alibaba Cloud. So boiling it all down in terms of customer requirements or business requirements. For example, you might be concerned about the cost of your solutions or the efficiency of it or the amount of time it takes for your IT team to build, deploy, or support these kind of solutions. After that is more a question of how do we scale those solutions and potentially going forward, how do we innovate? And it's looking at those three stages of the business growth, in particular, whether it's in China or anywhere in the world, that Alibaba Cloud relates to its core values. So right at the very beginning, we talk about our ability to support our customers to fundamentally connect and build those foundational services with our portfolio of products and services within the toolbox we offer, making that cost-effective and agile for our customers. Once they've established that foundational level, then we can talk about how do we scale it? How do we look at that next level of our solution that we know works, but how do we make it effective to scale that business wherever we are and to whoever we want to connect to? And finally, how do we transform that business? So we can talk about the ability of foundational services, the ability to scale, but going forward, how do we innovate? So the digital transformation aspect of our journey is absolutely critical on how we support our customers and our partners on providing their services, their customers, and their partners. Which probably explains why we have had experience in building a whole ton of different solutions, both on behalf and in partnership with our customers, ranging from across a variety of different verticals. As you might imagine, a ton of experience in areas such as financial services and e-commerce, but really throughout a multitude of different verticals, Alibaba Cloud has supplied our technology service to support both our own solutions and the solutions of our customers and partners. So if we look at some of those solutions just in a little bit more detail, we kind of think about, well, what are some of the general things you're able to do with Alibaba Cloud, and what are the more specific kind of solutions you might look at within particular verticals? So as you might imagine, there's a ton of innovation going on in China at the moment, just not at an online perspective, but in offline as well. So Alibaba has been heavily involved in looking at this new idea called new retail, joining the online channel to the offline world. Some of that's represented by businesses we built ourselves, like our Hema Fresh supermarket, but also very much in how we're working with other retailers and brands and developing their own new retail innovation solutions. So this slide just kind of paints the picture on how we approach that kind of concept. And we talk about the customer journey throughout the store, and in particular technology as it has a presence throughout the journey and supports the customer during every stage of their activity within that physical shopping space. So we don't talk about technology and solution for just technology's sake. It's how it becomes a part, a seamless part of that customer's journey. And in some ways, when we think about that idea of digital transformation in the physical retail space, it almost comes down to a perspective of how do I think about my physical store, like an e-commerce website. So we talk about the foundational things that we want to help our brands and our customers do from a physical store transformational perspective. It's based on data, but how do I get that data and how do I use that data? So technology plays a role, but it's only to support that customer journey and how our customers can actually interact more effectively with their consumers buying their products. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Alibaba Cloud in terms of where we've come from, what we're all about, and maybe why you want to work with us. Now I just want to touch on a little about Alibaba Cloud from a global perspective and from a security perspective. So with that in mind, we've already talked about working with Alibaba Cloud in terms of connecting to digital China, and we'd like to think of ourselves as one of your best technology partners in terms of that digital China strategy. We have a ton of experience from our own business on how we actually engage with consumers and building our solutions for scale in a secure manner, but not just in China, but globally as well. So as I mentioned, 8 regions in mainland China, but actually 20 throughout the entirety of the world, and every region consists of an availability zone or a data center, and at least 2 availability zones for resiliency purposes is always part of our blueprint strategy. All of those regions are connected by network links. We can actually become its own service. So we have an incredible service called Cloud Enterprise Network, providing network connectivity from any of our regions, both internationally, in China, and internationally to China. So when we talk about some of those challenges around stability, around latency, some of the core building blocks of Alibaba Cloud's portfolio of services specifically addresses some of those challenges, particularly when we're talking about connecting to digital China. We also think about security. So some of the services that make up our portfolio include web application firewalls, anti-DDoS, for example, anti-bot type services. Of course, we create these services for our customers to use, but we gain the experience of how we've designed and built them based on our own requirements. So when you run one of the biggest e-commerce marketplaces in the world, maintaining the security of that marketplace, in particular protecting our consumers and our partners around trust, is fundamental. So that capability, that experience that we have within our own business, we put into our products. The slide here shows some examples of some of the hackers, the attacks, the kind of things we have to deal with as part of our own solutions and our own portfolio and our own products on a day-to-day business as part of our business. And that's why we build those capabilities and that experience into the products we offer to our customers to take advantage of to protect their own solutions and requirements. Trust is absolutely fundamental to how we establish an effective working relationship with our partners and with our customers. We have more products and services available in that huge toolbox I mentioned within China than anyone else in the world. So we're going to talk about building a comprehensive, next generation driven artificial intelligence, innovative solutions in China. We have a ton of resources you can take advantage of to build your solutions effectively. The other thing to think about with Alibaba Cloud is not just the technology aspect that we like to bring to the table, it's the group. How can we work with you as a business across some of those parts of Alibaba I mentioned on the ecosystem slide to support your strategy for entering into digital China, whether it's Chanyo in terms of delivering packages, Tmall in terms of selling your products, Alipay to help your customers pay for things. But we want to bring the group capability of Alibaba to the partnership that might be founded on Alibaba Cloud. And again, it is tempting to dwell a lot in terms of China because it's a high area of interest for a lot of international businesses who want to look at exploring the China marketplace. But we are a global hyperscaler, which means we have footprints in terms of regions, availability zones throughout the world, and also that we have very stringent compliancy requirements, both at a local level and at a global level, to ensure that our customers who are using our services have the reassurance that they have been fully certified by third parties in terms of data protection, in terms of security, providing that high level of trust. One area could be GDPR, for example, with regards to Europe, HIPAA from a US perspective, right through standard kind of requirements such as ISO at a global level. And when we certify a region, a data center, those certifications apply to any region data centers throughout the world. So our customers can trust wherever they decide to use our services or store their data, they're protected by all the compliancy requirements that we have certified against. And this slide gives you a little bit of an indication that when it comes to compliancy, it's a huge aspect that Alibaba focuses on, because we feel that that level of trust is absolutely fundamental to the services and products that our customers use and why they want to work with us. And those certifications, as I mentioned, range at a global level, from how we certify our data centers to regional requirements on how we protect and deal with data, right through to very industry-specific things, such as HIPAA MPA, and the aforementioned Trusted Partner Network certification for storing and archiving highly sensitive media files. Again, all the work that goes into certifying, looking at the compliance of the services and the data centers that we have throughout the world is a fundamental aspect to the Alibaba Cloud service. And that's kind of at a product level, at a data center level, but that goes straight through to the stack on the kind of solutions and services we offer to our customers to securely build their applications. So how do we maintain virtual security, user security, application security of the individual specific solutions that they build, but also how they maintain their environment through to multi-factor authentication, different levels of accounts and user identity that are only allowed to look, use, or potentially take advantage of certain services within the console. So that level of security goes really from the ground up right through to the application level, and we work very closely with our customers in terms of that shared trusted model to ensure that when they build a solution on Alibaba Cloud, they have the reassurance that it's built on a highly secure platform and they have the tools they need to address their very specific security concerns. Okay, I did mention this was a bit of a whirlwind tour, and we're going to dive into a lot more detail in some of the sessions that you're going to be hearing on later date on the product specifics. Kind of just to wrap up my bit of the session this morning, I want to give you a little bit of insight on what are some of the services in place to support you getting started with Alibaba Cloud. Not just the product, the compute, the storage, and so forth, but the resources and assets you can take advantage of to make your journey into Alibaba Cloud that much more seamless. Okay, we're going to round out the day now and we think about how we're going to support these solutions. We have a ton of different things you can take advantage of. How do we get started? And how do we support those solutions going forward? Well, to get started, we have a ton of resources available to you, both through our online academy, hands-on labs to do a bit of practicing, in-person training in a number of different facilities throughout the world on a lot of different subjects, and even certification. So how do you get started with the product? How do you build that product? How do you practice with it? How do you get a little bit more personal interaction to ask those very specific Q&A sessions? And finally, how do you test yourself? So all of that is available to you as a customer of Alibaba Cloud. And some of the areas you can get started with today is through the Alibaba Cloud Online Academy. This is simply one of the iterations that we're providing to our customers to give an introduction. But that Online Academy also contains, through our website portal, a ton of resources you can use to get started with. So now you've learned a bit about how to use Alibaba Cloud, and you've deployed your solution. How are you going to support it? So with that in mind, we also offer a number of different after-sales support packages. So as a customer, you now need to understand, now that I'm live and I'm in production, how do I get support? How do I address those questions that I have, maybe in terms of actually deploying a configuration, changing a configuration, or maybe I've got an issue and I need engineering help. And depending on requirements, we offer a number of different packages to address those issues, whether it's ranging right from our Get Started free services, the basic kind of things where I can raise a ticket and get help within a certain SLA, right through to our enterprise level support, which comes with very high SLA, or should I say low SLA requirements. We can raise a critical ticket and get a response from an engineer in less than 15 minutes. So again, when it comes to not just learning how to use Alibaba Cloud, but actually the kind of after-sales support you need to actually support your solutions going forward in Alibaba Cloud, we had a lot of different resources and packages available to you as a customer. And it's not just the products we have within our own portfolio in terms of storage, artificial intelligence, database services, but it's our partners as well. So this slide shows a little bit of an introduction to our ecosystem of technology partners, for example. So when it comes to using your favorite tools, scripts, configs, etc., that you may be using solutions you've already built, hopefully there's an opportunity to translate that knowledge, that capability you already have in-house to Alibaba Cloud. So this shows a little bit of the ecosystem we support in terms of our technology partners, and it's growing all the time. And in fact, the latest addition to that ecosystem of the partners is Salesforce. So we recently entered into a partnership with Salesforce.com. They have joined the Alibaba Ecosystem partnership and will be available in China in the very near future. So hopefully this is really just showing you the kind of connectivity we want to bring to just our global partner ecosystem to support your requirements outside of China, but also within China. So we talk about being able to support these products, these services, these partnerships, these technology stacks in any of our regions throughout the entire world. And this is one of the reasons that customers like working with us, being able to build their production systems that may already exist in existing data centers or existing cloud providers that they've already invested a lot of time and effort in. How do we take those solutions and support our customers to deploy similar kind of capabilities in digital China? And this is where the advantage in terms of our experience, the locations of our regions, availability zones, and our portfolio of services and our partnerships play a really effective part. So hence we have experience working with a lot of international customers within and without China, whether it's Starbucks building an innovative offline digital experience within Shanghai, for example, working with financial services companies and how they connect effectively cross-border to their customers in China, working with international travel companies such as AirAsia and how they protect securely things like their booking systems, or recognized industries like the Olympics and even into the media area, some of which I just mentioned before with the likes of Animal Logic, ranging through to people who are providing streaming video and services into China itself. And right down into manufacturing. As you might imagine, IoT, Industry 4.0, a huge element of what's happening in digital China and a lot of innovation going on in that respect, which also explains we work with the likes of Schneider Electronics and Bosch in terms of using IoT to look at digital telemetry from racing cars. So thank you very much. That has been the whirlwind tour, introduction and overview of Alibaba Cloud. I am conscious I've probably touched on a lot of different subjects at a very high level, which is why the following areas in the next sessions will be diving into a little bit more detail, and I very much encourage you to attend the sessions that you think are going to be particularly relevant to you, which may be all of them. But from my perspective, I want to thank you very much for attending my session, the first session of the Academy Day online conference, and I hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned a little bit more than you knew previously about Alibaba Cloud. Now, if you have any questions on this topic, you can always submit them by using the Ask a Question box at the right of the screen, and we'd also like to invite you to claim your Alibaba Cloud product coupon by clicking on the March promotion banner. So just note one thing, that those coupons are only valid for the month of March. So if you snooze, you lose. And finally, if you're ready, click the button below to start a short test on this particular session. And by successfully completing it, you can apply for recognition of attendance certification online. And what's more, you'll also have the opportunity to sign up for an ACA offline certification exam for free for today only. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me today. I think it's time for a quick coffee break, hopefully before our next session. And just to remind you of the lineup we have for the rest of the day, I'm through and done. Next up will be Jeremy Peterson talking about elastic cloud compute. Goodbye and good luck.